Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Reviewing Your Pokemon series, and the title might not necessarily fit the best for this episode in particular because the Pokemon that we're reviewing is this Gardevoir and this Wigglytuff. Now, if you're out in the YouTube community, or the Pokemon Sleep YouTube community, it's a very small community, and there aren't very many creators that you could potentially be watching. And these are Pokemon of actually a different creator. Now, I'm sure he's watching along for this episode, but don't know if he's one of my regular viewers or not. If he is, hi, it's cool to see you here. But we're going to be talking about this Gardevoir and this Wigglytuff, and this has been quite the controversy over on Lambo Sleep's channel. Now, Lambo is a very, I do recommend this channel. If you haven't ever seen it before, go check it out. He makes some pretty good content. I find it to be very interesting. I watch him daily. It's very entertaining stuff. He's not the biggest min-max in the world. He tries to do well. He does use Rain on X and talks about strategy and things, and a lot of strategies along in the community right now. So he knows kind of what he's doing at least. He's not the huge min-maxer like I am. Like, he doesn't make spreadsheets about things like I do. But he's got good content, so I would recommend check out the channel if you haven't. I'll always support other creators making Pokemon Sleep content just because the community is so limited. But anyway, recently, he has had quite the toss-up in his community about this Gardevoir versus this Wigglytuff, because it's the whole concept of the health bonus healer versus a high trigger healer. Because really, these are both... And I've done the numbers, and I think I kind of have a sort of conclusion, and I just want to share my thoughts on the matter. And I have even asked him, I left this long comment describing my thoughts on it, and then I asked him, hey, can I make a video on it? He said, yeah, absolutely, love to see a breakdown of the dilemma. So I am glad to be talking about his dilemma with these Wigglytuff, or with these healers today, because my goodness, it is very interesting. But before I get to any of that, let's just look at what they have. So it's Gardevoir with Skill Trigger M and Skill Trigger S, double trigger, neutral nature, and ingredient fighting up, so like that's pretty much all it's got going for it, is the double trigger. Wigglytuff has helping bonus. As you know, I'm a huge fan of helping bonus on the healer. Skill trigger M, and then berry fighting S eventually. Now, one very notable thing about these Pokemon, this Wigglytuff is currently, I believe, he evaluated them at level 30. I don't know what the Wigglytuff actually is leveled right now, but he's looking to potentially raise it to level 30, and it notably doesn't have any skill seed investment right now. Now, for the sake of my evaluation, I am going to assume that Lambo is willing to invest full main skill seeds into this Wigglytuff if he's looking at it as a potential healer. Because the comparison, you'll see this as I go through this, the comparison in their value output is so close at main skill level 6 that it's not even worth considering using this Wigglytuff if he doesn't put full skill seeds into it to get it up to level 6, just like the Gardevoir. Now, for this comparison right now, I've taken Good Camp Ticket off, and I've got it at level 50. He evaluated it to see at level 30. That's alright. As you can see, Gardevoir clearly produces more procs per day than Wigglytuff. Now, a lot of the discussion about it is, when it comes to help bonus, the help bonus healer really shines in the fact that the helping bonus works multiplicatively with the energy for everyone, with the energy curve to produce more overall, or the same overall, and that's why it really can work. So you're not going to see more triggers. If you're evaluating it based off of triggers and triggers alone, Gardevoir is going to do better, period. If you just want triggers, go with the high trigger Pokemon, because no matter how you evaluate this, it's always going to come out with Gardevoir on top. Maybe if you do this, let's see. Okay, even if you give the Wigglytuff the best possible outcome by changing the help bonus stacks to be the jacked help bonus variant, the Wigglytuff still does worse. So, triggers, Gardevoir is going to do better. But the question isn't about triggers. The question is really all about overall output on the team over the duration of a week. Will that help bonus make up for the difference in the lost triggers? And I really wanted to do that analysis. So when it comes to the help bonus healer, there are two main ways to analyze it. The first is by doing an energy curve analysis, using this tool to then produce an energy curve based off how many triggers it's supposed to get in a day, seeing how that compares, and then just doing the quick hand math of dividing by 0.95 is the method that I use. If you divide this number by 0.95, then that will give you the overall expected average modifier of the help bonus healer. You leave it flat if it doesn't have help bonus. That's because 0.95 comes from getting 5% off of 1 because that's the impact of the 5% boost that help bonus provides. Now that's kind of a lowball estimate because if you have any helping speed skills on it, then or on your Pokemon or any other help bonus instances on the team, then the help bonus will actually be a little more impactful than just dividing by 0.95. But the difference is so minor that unless you have like 3 other help bonus stacks, it's not going to make that big of an impact. So I left that out negligible. I also left out any consideration of the speed cap because most players don't ever hit the speed cap. Speed cap shouldn't even be a consideration for most people. And I know you'll see one of Lambo's teams here in a moment. He's not hitting the speed cap with his teams either. So that shouldn't be a consideration in this case. So the other way to evaluate a help bonus healer versus a high trigger healer is through evaluating it using the team analysis functionality. Now, this is the team that Lambo used in his video that he released today as of recording this. This is the team that he used to evaluate and compare them. Now, I've done it with a lot more teams, as you can see, because I have a couple different ways. And I wanted to see what the actual experimental difference is. He used this team. I don't like necessarily the usage of this team as an example, primarily because it's an ingredient-focused team, and even if you're boosting the ingredient-focused team more than you are, like, even if one is better or worse than the other, the numbers aren't going to accurately reflect that, like, the true difference between them, because an ingredient-focused team gets most of its strength about meeting the ingredients needed to make the dish. So, as long as both healers provide enough the excess hardly produces any extra strength. So, overall, the difference in the outcome for the week from that team is going to be pretty minimalistic if it's an ingredient-focused team. So, I was like, I want to focus a little bit more and see how does it compare if we have a berry-focused team, if we have a skills-focused team, and if we have, like, a mixed approach team that has a little bit of both. And then I threw this last one on here as kind of a bit of a meme team, but it does illustrate another point that I wanted to mention with this. So, I've compared them, and then I also made comparisons for how they do with good camp ticket and without good camp ticket on each one of these teams at levels 30, 53 for Gardevoir, because that's what the Gardevoir's current level is, level 50 for Wigglytuff, and level 60 for both of them as well. Made those comparisons, and I put all that data into a spreadsheet. Because as you know, I'm a huge spreadsheet nerd. I'll move my face a little bit so that you can see the spreadsheet. And I also evaluated it with good camp ticket as well, because one interesting thing going for the help bonus healer is that the more procs you get per day, the less value you get out of those procs. So increasing the procs on a already high trigger Pokemon, the less those procs are going to have more value, but increasing the procs on a low trigger but helping bonus Pokemon, you get the more value it should theoretically output over the course of a week. So I wanted to compare for with good camp ticket and without good camp ticket, because that can make a big difference, especially since the most important weeks are often, especially for Snorlax strength, the most important weeks are often the ones that we're running the good camp tickets, because that's our high value events, times that we want to have the most amount and maximize that Snorlax strength. So that's why I did that extra analysis. And yeah, I just plugged in the numbers for all these teams, the ingredients-focused team, berry-focused team, skills team, balance team, comparing them at various levels. The reason why I compared Wigglytuff at 30 to Gardevoir at 53 is just because the Gardevoir is already at 53. They would take no investment. And then so on and so forth across all 3 different where he's currently at, where he could get if he put some investment, and then the late game, where he could eventually be if he full invested into these Pokemon. And Then down here is the projections. There's two ways to evaluate an energy curve, conservative or optimistic. I could describe a bit what these differences do, but just know that they're both valid ways to evaluate a Pokemon's energy curve. And I just wanted to see what the projection is going to be based off of the first method of analyzing the healers that I discussed, of the average versus the divided by 0.95 thing. So when it came down to that, I just looked across all three tiers. Now, as you can see, with the Wigglytuff only being level 30, generally speaking, it's worse to run the Wigglytuff. It's got minus 2.3%. Just like you can see, the numbers here are pretty low. The Rat Squad does particularly well, and that's why I want to discuss why the Rat Squad is really, really interesting and why I decided to include it. So the reason why I included Raticate. First off, this is kind of a bit of a homage to my Sleep Sleeper series. Go check that out if you haven't. Second off, it is important because these guys have the skill Charge Energy S. And just like Gardevoir, making more procs has diminishing returns on good camp ticket weeks, it's also going to have diminishing returns when proccing on Pokemon that already have less energy issues because they have their own energy recovery. And yes, this is an absurd situation that I made with a bunch of level 60 Raticates with some phenomenal stats. But I wanted to still make the comparison just to demonstrate the concept. Nobody's running this many Charge Energy S Pokemon, but it's another concept that could be used for consideration. And yeah, now, after doing all that analysis, even the best possible case scenario for the Wigglytuff at level 30, it's only producing about 4% more per day. At level 50, the Rat Squad, which is the best case for it, is about 10% more per day. And at level 60, it's also about 10 to 11% more per day. Which is actually a really significant increase. But once again, that's an unrealistic team. For the realistic teams, it's looking worse at level 30 in general. Like a little bit better at level 50. And significant, well, also just a little bit better at level 60. So the difference is pretty minuscule overall in terms of like more practical teams. Now, one interesting thing that I noticed is that on the ingredients team, you can see that the difference was pretty much the same between good camp ticket and no good camp ticket. I think that's primarily because of the whole concept of boosting it doesn't really matter once you're already meeting the ingredients pot dish size, and that just carries over. But you can see that the berry focus and the skill focus team still do increase the Wigglytuff comparative to the Gardevoir than what it was before. So yeah. Now, also, as far as projections go, it's actually projected that the Wigglytuff should be worse at level 50 and level 60 without the good camp ticket. But with the good camp ticket, it should pretty much always be better for boosting the team. And at level 30, it should actually be better. Now, this is primarily because this Wigglytuff has a lot of inventory issues with Berry Finding S after level 50, actually decreasing its procs per day. Now, Berry Finding S is actually pretty strong, and I think that's why it actually does better at level 50, because when you do the team-wide analysis, it's accounting for Wigglytuff's productivity on its own. So, when doing this analysis, especially without anyone having favored Berry, the Wigglytuff actually does better at level 50 comparative to the Gardevoir than prior to level 50. So, it's just kind of interesting that that's the case. But I think really what matters most is the difference is very, very minimal. To the point that, honestly, I think Lambo is in the right. Despite being the dude that will always say health bonus on the healer is like one of the best things imaginable, I think these are both pretty good healers. And they both have reasonable investment. If he had this Iggly buff and this Ralts and was asking about it, you know what? Maybe my opinion would be different. But it's not. It's a Wigglytuff versus a Gardevoir, and a Gardevoir that's already invested with full skill seeds. Skill seeds are very costly things in the game, and that reinvestment is not worth the potential, like, 5% increase to the team's productivity, in my opinion, because I think that could be used in better ways. Now, if Lambo ever gets to a point, if you ever get to a point, Lambo, where you just have a bunch of skill seeds sitting in your bag and don't know what to do with it, you know what? Maybe invest in this Wigglytuff. It'll certainly treat you well at Cyan, specifically, especially with that berry finding S. But in the current state, if you need the seeds, don't listen to those viewers that are telling you to invest in this Wigglytuff because, you know, there are other things that can take those seeds. Now, some other things that I did want to mention, there are other circumstances where there was another case being made for the Gardevoir outside of this as being the better healer overall, that maybe you should have invested in it if it was like choose one or the other. And that is the fact that skill triggers right away in the day are better than skill triggers later on in the day. And I've made a little production comparison here to compare the Gardevoir and the Wigglytuff overall. And as you can see, 1 trigger per day versus 2, this is the amount of triggers expected when you wake up in the morning. So basically, if this says 1 here, that means when you wake up with this Gardevoir, you have a 29.33% chance to have 1 trigger waiting for you. And you have 55.8% chance of having a double proc. Wigglytuff, you can see it's a 36 versus a 15. Now, those procs right away in the morning, like I said, are the most valuable ones because they're the ones that start you off above 100%, so that you are above 80% for the longest amount of time. Wigglytuff will produce more procs throughout the day, but consistently, Gardevoir's procs are more likely to be right at the start. Because you can see here, Wigglytuff is about a coin flip if you even have 1 proc awaiting you, a 1 or 2. It's about a coin flip. Gardevoir, this is more like 75, almost 80%, 85%-ish for the odds of encountering that right away in the morning. And that's without a good camp ticket. Now, good camp ticket, this is another interesting thing. Wigglytuff benefits from inventory more than what the Gardevoir does. So with a good camp ticket, it actually helps the Wigglytuff more comparatively, because now this one's odds has gone up more than what this one's odds have gone up. They both do benefit from it, but the Wigglytuff does more because of the inventory issues that it previously had. Now, I've made a comparison because another thing to consider is ribbons. As you can see here, Gardevoir's inventory eventually stops filling up throughout the course of the whole night if Lambo continues to sleep with Gardevoir, because eventually you get to a point where you have so much inventory that it just never fills throughout the night as you're sleeping. You never hit that point of sneaky snacking, so more inventory doesn't help you at all anymore after a certain point. And you can see here that all of these 4, it goes up a little bit from the first one to the second one, but then these guys all produce 5.09 procs per day. Wigglytuff gains a little bit more off of every single ribbon tier that it gets. So if you're willing to really long-term invest it, the Wigglytuff might even be stronger comparatively, because these comparisons were made assuming no ribbon, so that is one pretty big difference as well. And the good camp ticket further exemplifies that, because the whole things that were discussed earlier, because you get more inventory with a good camp ticket. That's another added effect that a lot of people don't remember actually exists. Usually people just see the good camp ticket as the extra spawn and 20% more speed, but it also adds 20% inventory size too. And that's like easily one of the most forgotten about aspects of the good camp ticket. So yeah, overall, like I said, my analysis is probably stick with the Gardevoir you got, Lambo. They're both very powerful. I think you could find a better one. Very powerful is actually a bit of a stretch. Double trigger is good, but not great. You probably could find a better one if you keep hunting more Ralts or more Pawmi or more Igglybuff even. You could probably find a better healer than either of these options. By the time you get either of them to, say, level 75. If you could get this Wigglytuff to level 75, it's definitely going to be better than the Gardevoir, but that's going to be a long ways away. So, yeah, that's pretty much my analysis. Hold the seeds. Wait for something better. You already have the Gardevoir, so keep using it. Don't bother reinvesting, because reinvesting is a very hefty cost. Unless you want something for Cyan specifically, in which case the Wigglytuff is going to be potentially the best ever healer berry finding combo you will ever find for Cyan. So, well, if you all have enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Down in the description of these videos, I do leave my form so that you could fill it out, potentially get a video made about your Pokemon. You go and fill that out. I also have an alternate way of potentially submitting Pokemon through my Discord. There's a Discord channel that you can send in Pokemon in there. The link to the Discord will be in the description as well. I'm also going to link Lambo's channel in the description. Go check out his videos. Like I said, they're very entertaining, and he's got daily content just like I do. So, yeah. As always, I thank you all for watching, and I hope that you all have a wonderful day. Bye-bye now.